So I want to introduce you to one of Shireen's clients, who is an early client, started a business in 2005, and has emerged in the USA and in the UK as a leader in digital marketing and digital strategy, a business that very much has intellectual property at its heart. Shireen, in the early stages, being who she is, went far and beyond above just helping with the intellectual property. She made introductions. She encouraged this gentleman to join the right networking groups and to win those very important first clients. So I wanted to, it's only proper to invite Will to be one of the first speakers to introduce Shireen's book and to share his personal experience. Please welcome Will.
I want to take you back to the 90s. Everybody remember the 90s? We haven't got any kids here, have we? I did my first work experience in the 90s and showed up in an office and had to use a typewriter. Now, a few of you have got even a couple of years on me. I'm sure some of you have worked in offices that were pre-internet, pre-computers, all that kind of stuff. It's crazy thinking back to that these days. And we hire kids now who are born, it's going to be pretty close to hiring kids who were born in the 2000s, but certainly they've grown up with the internet throughout their entire life, never mind their working life. But so let me take you back to the 90s, a little bit after the typewriters. So I was still in school and started a business with a guy called Duncan Morris, who's actually the co-founder in the business I run today. So we're in school, and we're looking around at things that we know about, things that we understand that other people don't, and computers is the obvious thing that we kind of get into. And we thought it was just altogether more fun to run our own little business than it would be to take a bar job or wait tables or any of those other things that our friends were doing. And but there was one thing that we did really, really badly, which was naming our business. So, I mean, among some other things that we did badly, including the fact that we just literally didn't understand tax. Like, at all. As in, we kind of registered for personal tax and then didn't really understand. Anyway, that's the story for another time. But it took a little while to unpick that. But we called our company Dynamic Computer Services. Solid name, Dynamic Computer Services. And we built a couple of little websites and did some bits and pieces. And then I think it was actually my first year at university, so we really weren't doing very much with the business at this point. We got this scary letter in the post from a business. So we grew up in Harrogate in North Yorkshire, and there was a business based in Leeds. And they wrote to us on their letterhead. Well, actually, I think it was their lawyers who wrote to us on their letterhead, saying all these very scary words about how they were called Dynamic Computer Services, and this was a big problem, and long words like that. And as I said, we didn't know very much about tax. We didn't know very much about the law. And we said, well, what about if we just shorten it? What if we could become DCS? And they went, no. Dynamic Computer Services was no more. We actually, I think we had a little advert that we were trying to run in a local, it was actually in the program of our local theatre. And it was literally going to press that next week, I think. And so we frantically were like, we need a new name, we need a new name. Can't call it DCS, CDS. So we have this one advert, I hopefully have a copy of it somewhere, where for one day we were called CDS, and that was our rebrand. All this is a very long way around saying you really shouldn't take tax advice from me or legal advice from me. But we were building websites way back in the day. And we then went to university, came to London, lived together for a little while, went to work for the man in the city, tried to earn a little bit of money. And then in 2005, started the business that became Distilled, which is the company that I run today. And along the way, we learned a little bit about marketing, about digital marketing. And so 2005, Shireen invited me along to BNI. Has anybody been to BNI? A few people here, no doubt. So it was Shireen's fault that for the next 4 years I had to get up at 5:30 every Friday morning. Our insurance is still done by Steve, who we met at BNI. We only recently moved banks from the bank manager that we met there. All kinds of brilliant stuff. But like I said, along the way, we learned a little bit about digital marketing. And the real important part of the reason why I'm here to talk to you this evening is to back up one particular key passage in Shireen's book, I think it's chapter 6 in Shireen's new book, which talks about the element of branding and naming in particular as it relates to digital marketing. Because this is an area where people have ended up in some dead ends over the years. And in particular, Google's to blame for some of this. Because for a good while, Google kind of incentivized very keyword, what we would call keyword-based names. Right? Exact match domain names is the technical name for what we're talking about. But this is the idea where, you know, when you go to a search engine, you type in your search query, that what you type in is called the keyword or key phrase. And an exact match domain name is a domain name that matches the thing you typed in. Hotels.com is a you know, famous classic example. I think it's in fact one that Shireen references in the book because they struggled to protect that name. But it was incentivized by Google because for a long time, these domain names would rank better than their branded counterparts. Right? So hotels.com would have an inbuilt benefit, would rank higher naturally than, say, a Travelocity or an Expedia or whoever else who was in the same kind of business. And well and good, fair enough, that incentivized that kind of behavior. But as Shireen talks about in her book, it's really tough to brand a descriptive company name. Right? It's tough to become well-known. It's tough to protect it, certainly. And also, you end up down that whole road of the .com 1.0 stuff, pets.com, all those kind of crazy things. But it led even further down that kind of path of craziness. There's a kind of self-reinforcing cycle where Google was ranking these exact match domains very well, and people were calling their companies things like London-cheap-hotels.com. Sorry if London Cheap Hotels is in the room. But the key bit that I really want to reinforce that Shireen talks about in the book is that that's kind of moved on. Google's got smarter. And that particular incentive has diminished, if not entirely gone away, and I certainly would come down way on the side of a proper brandable company name. And I wanted to spend the final bit of time that I have to give you some tips, tricks, and ideas, not just for the branding, but for that kind of digital marketing side of your businesses and your clients' businesses. So first off, on the naming side, I'm still a big fan of the .com domains because it's still the default. There was so much money poured into that, whatever it might be, any of the big brands who advertise their .com domains, it's still the natural default, and works very well in globally, actually. But they can be hard to come by, and this is the other problem with exact match domains: is good luck trying to buy a hotels.com or a pets.com or any of those kind of domains these days. So, yeah, choose a name that you can get the domain name of, but get your advice early. Get your IP advice, because if you end up having to change, not only do you you can potentially lose your domain name, but even if you don't, even if you're just forced to move to a different one because you rebrand and move away from that old brand, you can lose all of the hard work that you've built up, all of the equity in that brand and in that domain. That means that it ranks well in Google, that people type in your domain name and go and find it, that all of the bookmarks you have, all of those old links, all of those things can go away if you have to go through that expensive process of rebranding. So get that advice really early. And then, if you can, look for, if not real words, at least pronounceable, spellable words. That's not a word, is it, ironically? But the ability for people to communicate about your brand is hugely important. And this is the kind of, whether it's typing it in a Snapchat, or whatever the kids are doing these days, to their friends, or whether it's being found by type-in traffic, or whether it's just that you're talking to somebody at an event like this and you mention your company name and they have to go and find you on the internet. It needs to be a name that they can spell. And that's an area where a lot of web startups have gone kind of crazy, right? Or removing the vowels and doing all these kind of crazy things to it. So, but none of those, you can overcome any of those kind of rules if you have a great enough product, right? Because I guess that would emphasize liking Yahoo, which is totally spellable, over Google, which is actually a misspelling of Google, G-O-O-G-O-L, which is 10 to 100 power. There's the kind of this huge number. So don't obsess over the spellability, but aim for spellability. So spellability, get the domain name, get your IP advice before you buy it and before you brand on it and before you do all those other things. That's the foundation. And that's part of what we call the platform. So we have a methodology we call Balanced Digital Scorecard, which looks at the platform, which is everything from your domain, your technical platform, what content management system is your website built on, what technology layers are there in there, all those kinds of things. So there's the platform. There's the content that you produce, because in the digital age, we can skip every ad we don't like. We can block ads we don't like. We only really see the things that are shared with us that are interesting, that we want to see. And so you have to be putting out content that's interesting, at least to your target market, at least to your target segment. So platform, content, audience. There has to be somebody listening. It's pointless putting out the content to nobody. So you have to have a plan to amplify that, whether it's in the early days when you've got nothing, whether that's probably by some kind of partnership, finding people who have the audience. You have the great content, you have the great IP, the great idea. They have the audience, so partner up, because they're too busy to produce their content. So fine, you've built your platform, you've written your content, you have a plan to get an audience. You need a conversion path. You need something for people to do. You need to have them take an action, whether that's a micro conversion, like signing up to an email list, following you on Twitter, whatever those little bits and pieces might be, all the way up to the macro conversion of actually giving you money, because none of us are running the kind of pre-revenue Silicon Valley startups. It's a good idea to actually collect that money. And then the final piece of the balanced scorecard is the measurement, because online you can measure basically everything. And so getting in place your measurement plan early means that you can tell which of the other bits are working, and that can help you fine-tune, optimize, and build on all of those other pieces. So it spans from that platform, content, audience, conversions, and measurement. Line all those things up, and you can build a successful online business. And my argument, at least, is that, broadly speaking, everybody's online all the time now, right? You've got your phone in your pocket, the mobile internet. We might as well just start calling it the internet, frankly. We can drop the mobile part. And that's arguably the next revolution, which will still bake in all of the IP stuff, is, PCs were on a few 100 million desks. Mobile phones are already in 1 billion hands. That's going to be 5 billion. Sorry, mobile phones are probably already in multiple billions. Smartphones are going to be in multiple billions. There's that huge opportunity out there. But if you haven't protected your brand name, it'll all be for nothing. So listen to Sri.